Welcome, everyone, to episode 88 of the RDH Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chad. Joined alongside me is my brother Tanner. And this week we are dropping two pods for you guys because we're bringing Tanner's segment back. Tanner's Corner 3 is back. Today we're just talking NBA playoffs. Like I said, shortened episode, but good times. Tanner, we talked a couple days ago. We went into these series a little bit, but I think there's a little bit more meat on the bone there. Let's just get into it, dude. Everybody knows already how you're doing. You're doing fine. They heard from you 2 days ago. They saw the back wall, how good it looked. You know what I mean? You're looking good. Tanner's Corner 3, basketball, folks. Also, shout out PSG, Champions League. Let's get it going. You know what I mean? Okay. Pacers and Wolves move on in the NBA. You've got the Celtics versus the Knicks. New York's up 3-2. What the hell? What the hell, New York? Finished the game last night. Finished the series. They don't do it. Derek White steps up. Jaylen Brown steps up. Nuggets versus OKC. OKC up 3-2. What did take me into these things, man?
Let's start with Celtics and New York because I think that's the biggest storyline kind of coming out these past couple days with Jason Tatum and his, I think it's a torn Achilles from what I believe, and that is, obviously we've seen it before in other sports, and it's a big injury, man. It's something that's
And him.
Yeah, in him, and
He's had it before too. I think on the other leg, if I'm not mistaken, he had a ruptured Achilles and then a torn Achilles, which is like, oh, that's tough.
And it's one of those things where like you hate to see him go down, especially the star of a franchise like Tatum, and especially on a night that he kind of dropped, I think like 42 points. You could say he did his job in that game, but at the end of the day, it's gonna be tough without their valiant leader with Jason Tatum over there in Boston. But you kind of saw it last night. You kind of saw with that series how Boston was able to fight back. The depth that the team does have, right? You got guys like Derek White stepping up, Al Horford, right? We know he can do it. He's been doing it. Sixth man of the year, right? Like they got some guys. It's very like you mentioned, Jaylen Brown going out there playing up to his contract. I like the Celtics even without Jason Tatum, but the question is, can they do it for two more games? Right? The Knicks have two more opportunities to close out this series, but I mean, from what I remember, I think the stat is this season the Celtics are like 8-2 without Tatum playing, and I mean, depth-wise, that's pretty good, man. They have a lot of talent on this team, and this is kind of the reason I think that they were last year's, NBA champs, because they have this depth, because everyone on their roster kind of plays very similar style with the high-flying threes. When they're hitting, and everyone's hitting, right? And so it's just one of those things where Jason Tatum goes out, they're not going to stop shooting threes, right? The game plan's going to be the same, and you got guys like Derek White stepping up. You got guys, obviously Jaylen Brown's going to step up. He's a big time player, and he did in last year's playoffs. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of what the Celtics do. Maybe it grounds them a little bit. We'll see. But the series is nowhere near to over. The only thing is, I just would love to see a game that is close in the fourth quarter with Jalen Brunson, man, because that's kind of what he's been doing this entire playoffs. He's been that guy. He's been that battery for the New York Knicks, especially like later in games, and specifically later in this series, or earlier in this series, excuse me, because they were down like 20 plus points in multiple games and came back and won it. So it's not a good recipe for success. So I want to see the Knicks kind of get off to a better start to the game and kind of throughout that game. And I mean, they were playing well last night. They just kind of got to let it get away from a little bit. Jalen Brunson didn't have his typical performance. I think he only had like 20 points and he fouled out. So it's just one of those things. You need your guys, and they can drop one. I don't think they're too concerned about that, but we'll see what happens moving forward. It's just one of those things where you really don't want to let the Boston Celtics get to Game 7 because they've been there, they've done that. They know how to win a championship. They're a big-time franchise, and that's a big spotlight, especially with the Eastern Conference Finals being the Indiana Pacers and not the Cleveland Cavaliers. So we'll move on to that series, man. That one, obviously, I'm a Cavs fan, but that was not the Cleveland Cavaliers of this year that you saw in that series. That was Donovan Mitchell and everyone else in that series. And you saw Donovan the day after when they lost and he hadn't slept. It's just one of those things. He put pretty much everything out on the line for that team, and pretty much everything that he had in that series he threw out there. And you saw him, he does it every single round in the playoffs. He's the guy that kind of leads this team to the playoffs. So you see it year in, year out, and you just kind of want to see a little bit more from the Cavs team, a little bit more from the other starters. And I think, you look at this, series as a whole, and you kind of look at it just from an unbiased perspective, and you're saying, okay, well, Donovan Mitchell, he's taking care of business. There's no question about that. But where's, the defensive player of the year in Evan Mobley, right? Like, we get it, he missed a game. We get it, there's a little injury concern. Where's Darius Garland? He's supposed to be that kind of, I say, change of pace guard, as it's like a football and basketball marriage. But that's kind of how the Cavs like to play him when Donovan Mitchell isn't in. He needs rest, right? You can't play him an entire game. And that's where Darius Garland comes in. That's where he kind of keeps that high tone and high speed up, and just he's the guy that doesn't let, get the depth guys in there and you start sucking, right? You don't want that to happen, and that's where he comes in and starts to play well. And he's played all right in this series, but again, it's just not been enough. He's been absent in a couple games, and it's really hurt the Cavs a lot. But defensively, they just haven't really looked that good, and they haven't really looked that fast, that quick, and that athletic, and that physical. So, the Pacers. I talked at length about them yesterday, day before, so I won't go too into it. But they're a really good team, man. They're a very good team, right? Not a whole lot of star power, just a whole lot of teamwork, a lot of really good ball movement, a lot of really good plays, a lot of really good shooters, and they're hitting at the right time, and they deliver daggers in the biggest moments. It seems like they don't even care. It's like, oh, dude, this is like week 10, like week 10 of the NBA season. Like, that's kind of what it feels like to these guys. They're hitting threes at a crazy rate, and they're playing really, really well. So, but you got anything else on these these two series in the East, or what's moving on to the West?
I mean, the Celtics and the Knicks one, to me, it's like compared to like hockey, it's like the Florida and Toronto series. It's like Toronto's up. They have a chance to not necessarily close out the season, but go up 3 games to 1. And that's huge, right? In any playoff series. And when you have the Celtics and the Knicks and you have an injury that's as significant as Jason Tatum, and then the Celtics just kind of crawl their way back in, right? And they win a game here. And if they win a game again, then like you said, you don't want it to go to game 7 because anything can happen in game 7. So for me, I want to see New York close it out. Like they need to close it out next time. Like you said, they don't need to take it to game 7. And I understand that Derek White's a pretty solid player. He technically did play over Jason Tatum in the Summer Olympics. If you want to get technical with it, he did, which is kind of funny in of itself. But when you lose a guy like Tatum and you lose a guy that's that important not only to the team but to the city of Boston, it's just deflating as a fan base. Like, I can't even imagine you're on the pinnacle. You just won the championship last year, and then your guy goes down. And it's not like Tatum's old. Like, Tatum's young. Tatum's one of the best young forwards in the entire game. And Achilles, like you said, is a tough injury. And they already mentioned it, the multiple, ESPN segments, all the other sports segments. It's like, we don't know when Tatum's going to be back. Like, we don't know if this injury is going to be back next year, couple years. It's like, it's a scary injury. I mean,
I think it will bleed into next year for I think a good portion of that season, if not all of it. I mean, we're super late into these playoffs. Like, we're in May, and the season starts in October. That's not a big turnaround for an Achilles tear. Like, that's big.
Yeah. And like you said, Jaylen Brown's playing up to his contract, and they're going to have him do that. Because if they don't, and he doesn't drop 30 to 40 every single game, the Knicks are going to go ahead and go. And the Knicks or the Celtics right now, to me, are just kind of like holding on. But again, if you let them hold on in game 6 and it goes to game 7, that's a complete toss-up. And anyone can go through there, and it'd be a massive disappointment, in my opinion, for New York, because New York right now has this series in their hands, and all they have to do is go ahead and win a couple. They have to win one game. It's the best 2 or 3 series for Boston. Best 1 and 2 series for Boston. For the Knicks, all you have to do is win 2 games if you're Boston, and you move on. But all you got to do if you're the Knicks, you got to win 1. And then you already mentioned the Pacers. They moved on. Not necessarily a ton of star power, but when you have guys like Haliburton stepping up, as big as he did step up in the playoffs, it's like
awesome game 5.
You cannot argue his value, right? Because like you watch him play in the NBA playoffs, and you're like, oh my gosh, like these guys are on to the conference finals. They're here all like what? Who do the Pacers have, right?
Back to back.
And there's not a lot of star power, like you said. So for me, I'm just impressed with. I mean, the guy I know specifically, and the guy that I watched in this playoffs was Haliburton, and unbelievable showings by him. Not necessarily every game, but he was the one at the end of the series that was sitting there, and the other team goes home, right? So go ahead and take it on with the West, but some solid series in the East, and I think it's most likely going to be the Knicks up against the Pacers, and that's going to be a really interesting series.
It's
Like a very, very, very interesting series.
I think it really does come down to Game 6. I think that's going to be the, obviously the penultimate game in this series, potentially for the Boston Celtics, but it's going to be a game that will decide, I think, a lot of the tone going into Game 7, right? If you're New York, you don't want to be losing 2 in a row going into a, Eastern Conference Finals clinching match, right, against a team that's starting to get a lot of speed without their best player, without Jason Tatum. So I think, Boston's starting 5 could be a starting 5 on a lot of other NBA rosters. We looked at the draft lottery, and you were like, oh my gosh, it's like, what, Boston could easily be some of those teams starting 5 still right now as it stands, and they're out Porzingis and Tatum, so they still got a lot of shooters. Their game plan is still very good. They're a very good team. We'll see how it ends up, but Game 6 I think is a pivotal game. If it goes to Game 7, I don't know if I have a lot of faith in the New York Knicks just because the Celtics have been there. They've done that. They know how to play in big moments, and it's going to be at home for Boston, which is huge. So, but we'll move on to the West, man. The biggest series, in my opinion. I know it's already over, but Golden State going out, the Minnesota Timberwolves, they're a play-in team, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Like, these guys are just kind of running through the NBA playoffs like it's nothing. And you got these guys. Anthony Edwards is playing fantastically. Julius Randle, I think, has been playing. He's been the unsung hero of this team. I think he's been really great in the moments that Anthony Edwards really doesn't have the ball, right? We know what Ant can do. We know he can go up. He can play pretty much anywhere on the floor and pretty much be a physical force anywhere on the floor, right? And has so many different parts of his game that he excels at. So obviously he's the big guy in the series, and he hasn't had a great game every single time, but in the games that I guess that he hasn't had a good day, it's like he comes back and he's like, hey, guess what, 30. It's just one of those things. So this team is one of those teams that likes to rise in the playoffs, and I think Anthony Edwards is just a playoff riser in general. And when you got good depth guys playing good minutes, and they're just overall going positive on the night, without Steph Curry on the other side, no offense to the Golden State Warriors, it's going to be a long night. Jimmy Butler, he can only do so much, right? The reason they brought in Jimmy Butler was to kind of have, the dual option at point guard, whichever style they want to run. It's really tough, and they really made a lot of teams lose during that back half of the season after that trade. I mean, they were one of the best teams in the NBA record-wise after it. So it's just one of those things where you really hate to see it, but it's a part of the business. And if you're Minnesota, the whole narrative going into that game was, well, we need to finish it in 5 because we don't know if Steph's going to be coming back, right? And if you get Steph coming back in a Game 6, Game 7 with a chance to go on to the next round, he's going to do it. he's going to do it. So it doesn't matter what type of injury he's coming off of. He's a generation, the greatest shooter of all time. Depends on where you put him on the overall leaderboard, but he's absolutely up there, and he's been there. He's done that. He knows how to close a series. Kidding me, in the second round of the playoffs? Yeah, he's not fretting about that. So not a whole lot on this series for me. I just think it just makes you wish that Steph Curry had played the entire series, because I think this thing would be going to 7. The way the Timberwolves are playing right now, it's going to be a tough team to beat. So they're sitting, they're waiting, and we're going to see the winner of OKC and Denver, which this series has been interesting. Very interesting.
Up and down.
Up and down. We'll slow it down a little bit here, because this series, you come in and you're like, okay, I think OKC can take care of this in 5. And then Denver wins the first game. You're like, all right, Denver's much better than I thought they were. And that's kind of the story, at least for me, coming through these playoffs. Like, no head coach, no GM. We don't really know. Like, Jamal Murray's coming off of an injury, right? We said he's got a couple games in him going into the playoffs, and then, like, let's see what he can do. And looks like Jamal Murray from the championship year from a couple years back, man, he's just putting on a show. And Joker, to be honest with you, hasn't had like the best playoffs, like especially in this series alone, man. I think the OKC Thunder have done a great job with kind of limiting Jokic, and Jamal Murray's kind of stepped up to the plate. I think he's been playing really well. I think you got guys like Michael Porter Jr. who are playing really well, and obviously Aaron Gordon, who has been playing fantastically throughout these playoffs. And you look at the guys like on a championship roster, you need, your other guys to start up. You need your depth guys to start up. And I'm not saying Aaron Gordon's a depth guy, but he's definitely a guy that you look at it, he's not going to get the first look at the ball. And for some reason, he's taking game-winning threes, game-winning shots. And it's like, they got a lot of trust in him. They got a lot of trust in his abilities. And every single time he's showing up, he's showing out. So Aaron Gordon has been fantastic in these playoffs, and honestly, the starting five of the Denver Nuggets has been like 10 levels above expectation from where we thought they would be at the beginning of these playoffs, especially with no direction, no, consistency with the head coach and stuff like that. So it's maybe they have like this little underdog mentality going, but I mean, the battle of the MVPs is a fun one. And what do you got on this series? Because I think this is probably the only entertaining series left in maybe any of the sports, but because it's like the only close one, so
Well, you've got like every series in the NHL playoffs right now that's literally like going to be like 5 games. By the way, next
yeah.
week we're going to hit more NHL playoffs. There has been a trade in the NFL by the Cowboys that we may get into at the end of this episode. But next week we're going to jump into the NHL playoffs a little bit more. Also, NFL,
Mhm.
they did the schedule releases and a little announcement here, folks. You're like, what are these guys going to talk about in the offseason when the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs are over? Like, what the heck are they going to do? The kid with blonde hair, it's long, it's getting longer. All he's going to do is talk about his hair. Is the other kid going to talk about the weather? Right? It's going to be UFC fights. Like, what are these guys going to talk about? There's no sports. We're going to go over every single schedule of every single team and predict. Yeah, it's going to be insane. Not everything in one episode. It's gonna be a bunch of different episodes. But we're gonna go division by division. That's gonna be a blast,
Mhm.
and can't wait to go back and listen to the episodes and see how wrong we were. Anyway,
Just saying
the
last
NBA
year.
playoffs.
Saying last year,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think we did some pretty good predictions last year. I think we nailed
I know.
a
We need to go
good part
back
of
and
them.
actually see them this next year to see how we did because we nailed a lot of them.
A lot of them. A lot of them.
Like a lot. We nailed most of them. I would actually say the only ones we didn't nail was literally flip flopping the Cowboys and the Commanders. That was the only one I think we didn't nail in the NFC East,
Well, I think that's true. That's true. At least I think we both
which is
picked
crazy.
Eagles. I think we both picked Eagles, though. I think
Oh yeah.
we got.
Oh yeah, and I'm gonna do it again this year. I'm doing it again this year, but don't worry, we'll get into that in future episodes. We'll get into that in future episodes because we got some stuff we got to talk about here right now. NBA playoffs. For me, the Wolves, like when you have a player like Anthony Edwards, like first of all, as a casual basketball fan, like you want to turn on the TV, now turn on whatever freaking app the game's on,
Anything.
and you finally find it on the HBO Max, like behind the I don't know Dune release. And you're
so
like, what
far
the fuck
down.
are we
Why
doing?
is it so
Yeah, like
far
what are we
down?
doing, guys? But for me, it's like you turn on the TV and you just see like you notice Anthony Edwards as soon as you turn on the TV,
Mhm.
whether it's a ridiculous shot that he should not be making, or he's just yamming on someone. Like, and I'm not talking like it is like he is going up against a 7'2" center and just destroying him. So for me, it's like that's the most fun to watch whenever you're in terms of watching like an NBA game. So Anthony Edwards is one of my favorite players of all time, and not to mention his personality off the court. Like this guy he's gold when it comes to media, like absolute gold. His press conferences are hilarious. Like how are you gonna beat the Lakers and then walk around LA after the game? That dude, like,
That's bold.
okay,
I
we
agree.
see you. Like, we see you. You know what I mean? There's a guy in Toronto this year. After one of the games, he went out and was hanging out with the crowd, and everyone's like, "You just played. Like, what are you doing out here?" You know what I mean? He was like recording on his phone. He was this Russian cat. But anyway, for me, I'd love to see the Wolves go. Like, I genuinely wanted the Wolves to beat the Warriors, and when Steph went down, it was like, oh, like this is over. You know what I mean? This is over. And like you said, hey, the audio already came out. They already talked. I don't remember which guard it was that he was guarding, but he's like, y'all are holding off so Steph can get back in Game 6, right? Like that clip went viral or whatever on ESPN today, and it's just like that's so true.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards is going to attack you, and when you give him a chance to win, he's going to move on, and that's exactly what happened. And it's interesting because to go into the other series, it's like these West teams with the Wolves and the Nuggets specifically, you wouldn't think that they would be here.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone picked the Lakers last round, and everybody picked the Nuggets to lose to OKC.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, a lot of people did it in 4-5, right? And now, like you said, the Nuggets out of nowhere just get hot and start going, and Joker's not even playing well.
Yeah.
And so and when I say playing well, I should rephrase that. Playing up to his MVP type of level.
Yeah, just consistency over like a multiple game stretch.
Exactly. And so it's like with Jokic, it's like he's not only can take over a game and dominate, you've seen what's happened when he's done it.
Mhm.
He's won an NBA championship with the Nuggets. So any team that you give like a little bit of chance to, specifically in this series, like there are two series with the Nuggets and OKC and the Celtics and the Knicks. The Knicks, you got to step on the throat and go. OKC, you got to step on the throat and go.
Yeah.
Because if either of these games get to game 7, it's going to be bad news for these teams, in my opinion. So I would like to see OKC move through because all these guys are young, and I didn't think that it would happen this quickly.
Mhm.
But it's exciting times in OKC. And then again, the Nuggets, like it's a recent NBA champion. And so it's like, yeah, they already won. Like bring in OKC, let them go, right? Like imagine if you have OKC, the Knicks, the Pacers, and the Wolves. When was the last time any of those teams have won an NBA championship? Like, let's get all new blood in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's just one of those things too, because you have the 1 and the 2 seed in both conferences not making the conference finals, and that's just kind of unheard of. I don't know the last time that's ever been done, and you still have really good matchups. I mean, like I said, you look at the West and you look at kind of what's coming out and the top 7 teams, and you're like, yeah, I mean, this is going to be an absolute gauntlet for whoever has to make it to the conference finals. It's going to be, some of the best basketball you've ever seen. So, I mean, that's kind of why you look at OKC, and that's why you kind of look at hoping that they can, maybe stop the curse a little bit. But, Denver's clearly playing up to talent, like up to their talent level in this series. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be, bad end of the season. If OKC does go out in the second round, that is not what this team was built for. The best record in the NBA, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously the biggest lights kind of player, and they've got a lot of other guys that they're pretty much completely healthy, and like that would just be a disappointment, I think, for the season. Absolutely. So I don't know, man. It's kind of a team almost playing on house money with the Denver Nuggets, and then OKC with a lot of expectations on a young team that really doesn't have a lot of championship experience, going up against, hey, guess what? A team that has a lot of championship experience with, Jokic and Jamal Murray pretty much doing what they do every single playoff. So it's going to be fireworks in game 6 and 7. If I think this goes to 7, I really do. I don't know if OKC can. They absolutely can take them out in 6, but I just Jokic in game 6, Jamal Murray in a big spot. Like, these guys play well in the best, opportunities. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes down. But I this is the series, obviously the only series left in sports that's like good right now. So I'm going to be keeping my eyes on it, man.
Dialed into the NBA playoffs, and next week we're going to be dialed into the NHL playoffs. We're going to have a lot of rounds that are going to be over by then.
Mm-hmm.
Depending upon how many of those rounds are over, we're going to dive into those series. We're going to talk a little bit more NBA playoffs as well. Again, there was a trade that happened to Dallas. Dallas has a new number 2 wide receiver. We're going to get into that next week as well. But this episode was just for the NBA fans in Tanner's Corner 3 segment. So, folks, we will catch you next week, and enjoy the part 2 in the same week.
I know, it's amazing. Got to get part 2, and Spurs got the number 2 overall pick. Mavs got the number 1 overall pick.
Maybe we'll get into the NBA draft next week, and we can talk about how it was rigged. That's a. Let's end the episode now. Cliffhanger. Yes. Yes.